And our reading today is from Philippians chapter 2 verses 19 through 30. I love the book of Philippians. To me, it's always been that book of joy and humility, and so I'm looking forward to hearing what other people have said and been saying and will continue to say. It's that thing of, so Paul has been talking about his sacrifice to serve the church rather than to go to glory. That's actually Paul's mindset, isn't it? That actually to live is more of a sacrifice than to go to heaven. And it's a sacrifice to serve the church. That's the point. And it's to edify and to build the church. And that's we've also been building on the example of Jesus and his sacrifice and service, obviously through to death on a cross, and then Paul's own personal example being poured out like a drink offering in the previous verse. So verse 19 and through to 30 are talking about two fabulous men that Paul has been working with, Timothy and Epaphroditus. And he is really commending them to us. And it is a heartfelt recommendation from Paul of Timothy, who has been like a son to him. And I love the way he talks about Timothy taking a genuine interest in others' welfare. That's what he says, isn't it? And for everyone, he says for everyone else, and obviously he does know other people because he then goes on to talk about Epaphroditus, but for other people mostly to look out for their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ's, but not Timothy. And I hope and pray that we would be like that we're looking out for other people's interests and for Jesus's interests. I love the way that Paul talks about his emotions in this passage, that that I may be cheered when I receive news about you, and then he talks about Epaphroditus, how God had mercy on him, but also not only him, but on me when he was spared from death, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. And he talks about Epaphroditus, I'm all the more eager to send him, so that when you see him, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety over the church in Philippi. And I love his Paul's willingness to talk about his emotions, and I think we will need to do that more and more. And I feel like that as a parent as well, that I need to model talking about my emotions really honestly and how I deal with them, good and bad, and to my children, so that they can express their emotions appropriately, because there are good and bad ways to express our emotions, aren't there? I love the fact that he talks about Epaphroditus, that Epaphroditus was distressed at the Philippians' distress of when they heard about him being nearly dead. So not only had he risked his life to death, he was then distressed about the fact that his brothers and sisters in the church in Philippi had learned of that and were concerned for him. And that is that genuine interest, isn't it, for others, preferring them and their needs over your own. And then he commends the Philippian church, doesn't Paul? Commends them to welcome Epaphroditus back with great joy. So he's received the gift through Epaphroditus from the Philippian church, and then he's sending him back because he was so poorly, but also he has done his task. And Paul wants to know how the Philippians are doing, and he wants to reassure them that Epaphroditus is actually fully better, and that will make Paul less anxious. It doesn't say that he won't still have anxiety, and that reminds me of our understanding, about being anxious for nothing, but also at the same time, that it's those two things in balance, isn't it? Not being unduly anxious, but pursuing God's rest, and doing what we can do to lessen that anxiety for other people and for ourselves. And just for the Philippian church to honour this man who has risked his life. He didn't have to go. He didn't have to, presumably he volunteered to take this gift to Paul in Rome. And obviously at that time, and even now, there is danger in travel and in putting yourself forward for anything, isn't there? Raising your head above the parapet, and risking things for God's work. And so Paul commends Epaphroditus to the Philippian church and asks them to honour him and others like him. And I pray that today we would be like Timothy and Epaphroditus and Paul and Jesus, in as much as we possibly can, that we would be humbly preferring others to ourselves, and serving and looking to pursue Jesus's work in every circumstance. Have a great day. Bye bye.